Fireline at the Tantalus Edge by Arthur F. Isley in the cold void of space, where stars streak like whispers and debris fields stretch endless. A lone Federal Patrol craft carves through the chaos, its wings swept back in defiant grace. Through twisted metal and amber coils that flicker and glow, the sleek silver spacecraft banks hard on a trajectory unknown. Cover art. A lone, sleek silver spacecraft with angular, swept-back wings and a pointed nose cone flies through a vast debris field of twisted metal and glowing amber energy coils. In the distance, 3 flickering beacons pulse with golden light against the cold black void of space. The spacecraft engines blaze bright blue-white, leaving a trailing wake of light as it banks hard into a curved trajectory. Stars streak past in long exposure lines. The ship hull bears markings of a Federal Patrol fleet. A beautiful woman with dark skin and short black hair, wearing an orange flight suit, stands at the cockpit canopy, her gloved hand gripping a restraint handle, her face set in determined focus. Illustrated in the style of 1950s pulp science fiction magazine covers. Chapter 1. Fireline at the Tantalus Edge. The bridge of the Federal Patrol vessel Haven-S Reach hummed with a low, steady thrum, punctuated by the occasional beep and hum of consoles. 3 days out from Icaran Prime, Navigation Officer Nia Vasquez sat hunched over her console, her sharp brown eyes scanning the star charts with an increasing sense of unease. The familiar constellations that should have been blinking steadily on the holographic display were wrong. Stars that had always marked her path were absent, vanished into the cosmic void as if swallowed by a hungry beast. In their place, new stars burned brightly in positions they shouldn't occupy. Nia adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses, squinting at the anomaly. Her dark hair, pulled back into a tight bun, didn't shift an inch as she leaned closer to the screen. She double-checked her calculations, her fingers dancing over the keys with practiced efficiency. The results were the same. Something was profoundly amiss in the Tantalus corridor. The bridge doors hissed open, and Commander J. Corbett strode onto the deck. His tan skin glistened with a fine sheen of sweat from his recent 3-hour reconnaissance sweep, and his gray Federation pilot jacket bore the creases of hard use. Short wheat-blonde hair framed sharp green eyes that scanned the room with a commanding presence. His jaw was set in a tight line, betraying the tension beneath his composed exterior. "Report," he demanded, his voice cutting through the ambient noise like a knife. Ilara Wynn, Gate Commissioner and the highest-ranking officer aboard Haven-S Reach, stood at the central holodable. Her dark skin contrasted starkly with her orange Federation flight suit, and her short black hair was immaculately styled despite the urgent circumstances. Warm brown eyes met Jay's gaze, but her posture remained rigid, fingers drumming a rapid rhythm on the table edge, a telltale sign of her internal turmoil. "Navigation beacons are down," Ilara replied, her voice steady despite the urgency. 3 of them have gone silent in the past standard day." The ship shuddered violently, and a proximity alert wailed through the bridge. Through the forward viewport, a sprawling field of twisted metal debris stretched across the void. Remnants of the Battle of Tantalus, decades old and now drifted perilously into the shipping lanes. The wreckage glinted menacingly under the starlight, an ominous reminder of past conflicts. Jay's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. "Nia, what do we have?" Nia looked up from her console, her brow furrowed. "The star charts don't match, Commander. It's like the stars themselves have shifted positions." Ilara interjected, her voice firm. "I'm invoking emergency protocols. All non-essential traffic through the Tantalus corridor is halted immediately." Jay nodded, his expression resolute. "I'll take my squadron out for reconnaissance. We need to map this dead zone and find out what's happening." Nia turned back to her console, her fingers flying over the keys as she attempted to reconstruct the original beacon network from old Federal records. The hum of the ship's systems seemed louder in the sudden silence that followed Jay's declaration. The bridge doors slid open again, and Chief Mechanic Harlan Driscoll entered, his broad shoulders filling the frame. Mutton chops framed his weathered face, and engine grease stained his gray jumpsuit hands. "Captain," he acknowledged Ilara with a nod before turning to Jay. "Aft thruster array calibration drift detected. Needs immediate attention." Jay acknowledged Harlan with a quick nod. Prioritize it, Harlan. We can't afford any more surprises. Ilara stepped away from the holodable and activated her commissioner badge, its metallic surface gleaming under the bridge's harsh lights. Her voice echoed through the ship as she invoked emergency protocols, sealing the Tantalus corridor to civilian traffic. Jay turned to his navigation officer. "Nia, I need those charts updated ASAP." "Working on it," Nia replied, her focus unwavering as she delved deeper into the star maps. The bridge settled into a tense rhythm, Ilara issuing orders with clipped precision, Jay coordinating with his squadron via comms, and Nia hunched over her console. The Haven-S Reach was on high alert, poised at the edge of the unknown, ready to face whatever lurked in the Tantalus corridor. The chapter ends here with the bridge crew standing united amidst chaos, their resolve unwavering against the looming threat that had suddenly materialized from the depths of space. Chapter 2, Distorted stars the cargo bay of the Haven-S Reach hummed with an urgent, electric energy. Ilara Wynn stood in the center of the transformed space, her orange Federation flight suit stark against the backdrop of holographic displays that danced in the air like spectral ghosts. She moved with a focused intensity, barking orders and coordinating streams of data with the precision of a seasoned commander. The cargo bay, once a cluttered storage area, was now a pulsating nerve center, alive with the buzz of activity. Ilara's dark skin glistened with a thin sheen of sweat as she toggled through layers of digital interfaces projected from her wristcom. Her warm brown eyes scanned lines of code and maps with an almost mechanical efficiency. She had invoked the Border Sector Order, a relic of old war protocols that gave her sweeping authority over all federal assets within the affected corridor. It was a bold move, one that hadn't been seen since the Hellion campaign decades ago. Aldous Price paced nervously around the perimeter, his thin frame and ill-fitting uniform making him look like an intruder in this world of practical, hard-wearing jumpsuits. His pale skin flushed with irritation as he watched Ilara work. "This is highly irregular," he snapped, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Only the Admiralty can authorize such measures." Ilara didn't even glance up from her tablet. She tapped a few commands and brought up a digital document, highlighting key sections in bright red. "Regulation 724B, Section 13, she recited without hesitation. "In cases of imminent threat or anomaly within a border sector, the commanding officer on site may invoke emergency measures until relieved by higher authority." Price's mustache twitched as he scanned the text. His eyes widened slightly as he saw the signatures of 3 sector governors at the bottom. He sputtered, his voice rising in pitch. "But this is unprecedented." Ilara finally looked up, her gaze piercing through him like a laser. "Precedent is for history books, Price. We're making history right now." Price's face turned a deeper shade of red, but he fell silent, his objections momentarily stifled. Jay Corbett's voice crackled over the helmet comm, breaking the tense atmosphere. "Ilara, we've got something." His sharp green eyes seemed to stare right through the holographic interface as she activated the comm channel. "What is it, Jay?" Ilara asked, her tone urgent but controlled. "These dead beacons, they're not just offline," Jay replied, his voice tinged with a mixture of disbelief and alarm. "They're broadcasting, but the star charts they're sending out are wrong." Ilara's brows furrowed in confusion. "Wrong? How?" "The star positions encoded in the beacon data don't match the actual night sky," Jay explained. "It's like someone is spoofing the navigation network." A chill ran down Ilara's spine. She exchanged a glance with Nia Vasquez, who stood nearby, her thick-rimmed glasses reflecting the dance of holographic data. "Can you bring back a sample?" Ilara asked Jay. "On it," Jay confirmed. The comm channel cut out with a soft, static hiss. Nia nodded to Harlan Driscoll, the chief mechanic with mutton chops and grease-stained hands. "Harlan, we need a secure communication relay chain established back to the Haven-S Reach." He gave her a thumbs-up before disappearing into the maze of machinery lining the walls. Ilara turned back to Aldous Price, who had retreated to a corner but still watched with a wary eye. "This changes things," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. "We need to understand what's happening out there." Price nodded slowly, his earlier objections seemingly forgotten in the face of this new revelation. "I'll alert the appropriate channels," he muttered, pulling out a slim communicator and stepping aside. Ilara watched as Jay's fighter banked sharply on her holographic display, diving towards a debris field where the most recent dead beacon floated like a derelict ghost ship. Her grip tightened on her tablet as she prepared to face whatever lurked beyond the edges of known space. The Haven-S Reach was now more than just a mobile command post. It was a beacon of hope and order in an increasingly chaotic frontier. The stars above seemed to shift ominously, their familiar constellations twisted into unfamiliar patterns by some unseen hand. Ilara steeled herself, ready to confront the unknown and restore balance to the border sector. The Tantalus edge awaited, and with it, secrets that could redefine the Federation's understanding of the cosmos. Chapter 3. Shadows in the debris. The silence of space was deafening, punctuated only by the hum of the Vorhit-Jeschwader's engines and the occasional crackle of static through Jay Corbett's helmet comm. The debris field stretched out before him like a graveyard of metal and shattered dreams, remnants of the Battle of Tantalus that still floated in the void. "Squadron, hold formation," Jay commanded, his voice steady and authoritative. "We're approaching the beacon." His sharp green eyes scanned the wreckage, picking out details that might otherwise be lost in the chaos. A torn piece of hull plating bearing the insignia of the Federation's 12th Fleet, an antenna array twisted into a grotesque parody of its former self. The navigation beacon at the center of the field was barely visible, its running lights flickering weakly. Jay maneuvered his fighter closer, the other three in his squadron mirroring his movements with precision. The formation cut through the debris like a knife, each pilot's focus unwavering. "Ilara," Jay said into his comm, "we're in position. Drone recovery in 5. "Copy that, Commander," Ilara Wynn's voice responded, calm and collected despite the tension underlying her words. "Be careful out there." The maintenance drone was nestled among a cluster of smaller debris fragments. Jay extended a grappling arm from his fighter, snagging the drone with practiced ease. He guided it back to one of the squadron fighters, where Harlan Driscoll waited. Harlan's broad shoulders and mutton chops were visible through the fighter's canopy as he leaned out, securing the drone with deft movements. His hands, always smeared with engine grease, worked efficiently despite the gloves that protected them from the vacuum of space. The team had trained for this. Their synchronization was almost instinctive. Back aboard the Haven-S Reach, Nia Vasquez monitored the recovery through a holographic interface. Her sharp brown eyes scanned the data streams pouring in from the squadron's sensors. "Commander," she said, her voice barely audible over the comm, "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from that drone." Jay raised an eyebrow but kept his focus on flying. "Details?" "It's not federal issue," Nia replied, adjusting her thick-rimmed glasses as if it would help her see through the data better. "The readings suggest Cathurian residual technology, decades old but still functional." Jay's grip tightened slightly on the controls, a subtle tension running through his body. Cathurians, ancient and enigmatic, their technology both revered and feared. "Keep an eye on it," he ordered. "I'm bringing it back to Ilara for analysis." The squadron broke formation as Jay guided his fighter back towards the Haven-S Reach. The rest of the team dispersed, continuing their patrol through the debris field, their vigilant eyes scanning for more anomalies. Ilara met him at the docking bay, her orange Federation flight suit stark against the gray of the station walls. She took the device from Jay, examining it with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The disk was small but heavy, its crystalline core pulsing with a faint amber light that seemed to dance in the dim lighting of the hangar. "No markings," Ilara murmured, turning it over in her gloved hands. "But look at this craftsmanship." She pointed out the intricate patterns etched into the metal, almost too fine to be seen by the naked eye. "Someone manufactured these deliberately." Jay leaned closer, his breath fogging up his helmet's visor slightly. "And they were hidden inside the navigation network maintenance drones," he added grimly, "broadcasting false star charts to any ship that relied on them." Ilara nodded, her warm brown eyes reflecting the device's eerie glow. "The Syndicate might be involved here. This isn't just a matter of disrupted signals, it's active management." Just as she finished speaking, Ilara's comm chirped sharply. She frowned and tapped a button on her wrist unit. The message was encrypted, but its origin was clear, a syndicate contact. "Warning," the voice on the other end said, barely more than a whisper. "The Tantalus corridor is not just disrupted. It is being actively managed." Alara's expression hardened. She looked up at Jay, her eyes conveying a silent message of urgency and danger. The chapter ended with that unspoken understanding, the weight of their discovery hanging heavy in the air. Whatever secrets lay hidden among the debris of Tantalus, they were about to dive deeper into them, and potentially into a web far more perilous than any battlefield. Chapter 4. Shadows in the corridor. The dimly lit corridors of the Haven-S Reach hummed with the low throb of engines and the distant murmur of crew members going about their duties. Alara Wynne stood at the airlock, her heart pounding softly against her chest as she waited for Myra Saul's arrival. The gate commissarin adjusted her orange Federation flight suit, ensuring every crease was in place, a small ritual to steady herself before the meeting. The airlock hissed open, revealing the slender figure of Myra Saul. She stepped inside, her ash-blonde hair slightly disheveled from the quick transfer between ships. Her calculating gray eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail with a practiced glance. The battered merchant jacket she wore hung loosely on her frame, giving her an air of nonchalance that belied the urgency of her mission. "Welcome aboard," Alara said, extending a hand towards Myra. "I'm Alara Wynne." Myra hesitated for a moment before taking Alara's hand in a firm grip. "Myra Saul," she replied, her voice steady and cool. Alara led her to a secure room adjoining the bridge, where Jay Corbett was already waiting. The commander stood by a console, his sharp green eyes fixed on a holographic display of the Tantalus corridor. He nodded at Myra without breaking his focus on the data flowing before him. Myra took a seat opposite Alara and pulled out a small data chip from her jacket pocket, placing it on the table between them. "This is what you need to know," she said, leaning back in her chair. Her gaze flicked between Alara and Jay, assessing their reactions. Alara picked up the data chip, examining it briefly before inserting it into the console. The room fell silent as images and reports flickered onto the display. "A mass sender," Myra began, her tone matter-of-fact. "Designed to falsify the spectral signature of stars, makes navigation based on star positioning unreliable." Jay looked up from his workstation, his eyebrows raising slightly in surprise. "That's why we've been seeing so many discrepancies in our charts. And you say this is syndicate tech?" Myra nodded. "Yes, the device was created by an operative known as Der Regisseur, the director. He's been systematically dismantling the Tantalus corridor, replacing federal navigation beacons with spoofing devices." Alara's grip tightened on her data pad. "And ships wander off course into debris fields." "Exactly," Myra confirmed. "Mines disguised as asteroid fragments complete the trap. The director has a base somewhere in the corridor, a ghost station built decades ago and never used. He's planning something bigger, more lethal." Jay studied the recovered sender device, its Cathurian core pulsing steadily with an eerie rhythm. "Cathurian technology," he murmured, almost to himself. "Who else might be using this?" Alara looked at Jay, her warm brown eyes reflecting a mix of concern and determination. "We need to find out who the director is and stop him before it's too late." Myra stood up, her movements fluid and economical. "I've given you all I can. The rest is up to you." She turned towards Alara with a faint smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "And thank you for your offer of safe passage, but I have my own reasons for wanting the director stopped." Before anyone could respond, Myra slipped out of the room and vanished into the station's civilian population, leaving behind only the echo of her footsteps. Jay watched the door close before turning back to Alara. "We need to get this information to command immediately." He hesitated, then added, "But first, we should prepare a countermeasure for these mass senders." Alara nodded, her expression grim. "Agreed. We can't let the director turn the Tantalus corridor into a death trap by week's end." She began tapping commands into her console, sending encrypted messages to Federation HQ. Jay joined her at the console, his fingers dancing over keys as he pulled up schematics of the corridor and marked potential locations for the ghost station. "If we can pinpoint where these beacons are being replaced," he said, We might find a pattern leading us to the director's base. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the hum of machinery and the soft whirring of data streams. Alara and Jay worked in sync, their minds racing with strategies and possibilities as they prepared for the battle ahead. Outside the secure room, the Haven-S Reach continued its journey through the stars, unaware of the storm brewing within its walls. A storm that threatened to engulf not just one ship, but an entire corridor teetering on the edge of chaos. Chapter 5. Echoes of the Hellion campaign. Alara Wynn's fingers danced across the holographic interface, sifting through layers of dusty digital records buried in the Federation's archive databank. Her eyes scanned lines of code and schematics, a faint glow reflecting off her warm brown eyes. Suddenly, she leaned back, a gasp escaping her lips as she stared at the three-dimensional rendering floating above her console. "Unbelievable," she whispered, zooming in on the intricate design of the relay stations scattered across the Tantalus corridor. The plans were dated decades ago, from the tail end of the Hellion campaign. She remembered the stories, how ambitions ran high, then crashed as funding dried up like a desert stream. She cross-referenced the coordinates with current stellar maps and felt a surge of excitement. The stations weren't just plans. They were built, partially at least. 3 skeletal structures stood sentinel in the disrupted zone, their cores dormant but intact. Alara tapped into the Federation's asset database, pulling up images of the station's last known states. They were eerie silhouettes against the cosmic backdrop, gutted shells awaiting a purpose long forgotten. Each had a Cathurian resonance core embedded deep within its structure, a remnant of treaties forged in a different era. Her mind raced with possibilities. If she could reactivate these stations, synchronize them perfectly, it would create a safe corridor through the hazardous Tantalus edge. 3 points of synchronization, timed to the millisecond, forming an unbreakable navigation mesh. Alara rose from her chair and made her way to the briefing room. Jay Corbett was already there, his gray pilot jacket stretched taut over broad shoulders as he studied a star chart. He looked up, sharp green eyes meeting hers with an unspoken question. "We have a solution," Alara said, projecting the relay station plans onto the holodable. "These were built during the Hellion campaign but left unfinished. They're inside the disrupted zone." Jay's brow furrowed as he examined the schematics. "Inactive for decades, and now you want to bring them back online." "Exactly," Alara nodded. "And I need your squadron to escort the reactivation teams through the minefields and spoofed navigation zones." Jay didn't hesitate. "We'll do it. What's the plan?" Before Alara could respond, Harlan Driscoll burst into the room, hands smeared with engine grease but eyes alight with determination. "I've been tinkering with some old shield generator designs," he said, holding up a datapad filled with technical diagrams. "If we can boost their output and synchronize them with the station's resonance cores, we might stand a chance against whatever's out there." Nia Vasquez followed close behind, dark hair still tucked neatly in her bun despite the urgency of their task. She adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses and added, "I'm working on counter-spectrum algorithms to counter the mass consender interference. Should have something concrete soon." Alara felt a surge of gratitude for her team. "Excellent work, both of you," she said before turning back to Jay. "Here's your brief. Each station needs a specialized ignition sequence. Timing is critical. All 3 must come online within milliseconds of each other or the whole system will collapse." Jay nodded grimly. "I'll need detailed flight paths and real-time updates from Nia. Harlan, make sure those shields can handle whatever surprises we find out there." Harlan grinned, a rare sight under his mutton chops. "You got it, Commander." Alara handed Jay a datapad with the mission specs. "This is your priority. Get those teams in and out safely." Jay took the pad, his expression resolute. "Understood, Commissarin Wynn. We'll make this corridor safe again." As the others dispersed to prepare for their roles, Alara watched Jay leave the briefing room. She knew they were venturing into unknown dangers, but with her team's skills and determination, she hoped it would be enough. The Tantalus corridor awaited, silent and treacherous, its secrets hidden beneath layers of interference and decay. But within those echoes of a forgotten campaign lay the key to unlocking a new path forward, if they dared to reach for it. Chapter 6. Unlikely alliances, the hatch to the Haven-S Reach crew quarters slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Lieutenant Kale of the Hellion Guard. His tall, lean figure stepped onto the deck, his white and gold uniform contrasting sharply against the muted tones of the Federation ship's interior. Amber gold eyes scanned the room, settling on Commander J. Corbett, who stood by the tactical console with a wary expression. Jay's green eyes narrowed as he appraised Kale, his grip tightening slightly around the datapad in his hand. "Lieutenant," he acknowledged, voice neutral but cautious. "Welcome aboard." Kale nodded, his movements precise and controlled. "Commander Corbett, I presume?" He extended a hand, palm up in a gesture of respect common to both Federation and Hellion cultures. "I am Lieutenant Kale, Hellion Guard Aaronwash. Thank you for allowing me on your vessel." Jay hesitated for a moment before shaking Kale's hand firmly. "You're here about the Tantalus disturbances?" he asked, getting straight to the point. Kale's gaze flicked to the resonance modulator device on his belt. "Yes, the Hellion Guard has been tracking these anomalies closely. Our intelligence suggests that the mass consender devices are creating significant perturbations in the local Higgs field, ripples that propagate through subspace and affect navigation across this sector." Alara Wynn, who had been monitoring the comms station, turned to face Kale. Her orange Federation flight suit stood out against the cool blues and grays of the bridge. "Perturbations?" she echoed, her brow furrowing. Kale nodded. "The disturbances are more than just random anomalies. They're deliberate disruptions designed to destabilize subspace corridors." Nia Vasquez, seated at the navigation console, adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses and looked up from her readings. "That would explain why our navigation systems have been so unreliable," she murmured. Jay crossed his arms over his chest. "And what does the Hellion Guard propose to do about it?" Kale's amber gold eyes held Jay's gaze steadily. "We offer technical assistance, specifically this device." He gestured to the modulator on his belt. "It is a resonance modulator designed to smooth gravitational fluctuations in subspace." Alara stepped closer, her curiosity piqued. "How does it work?" "By emitting counterharmonics that neutralize the distortions caused by the mass consender devices," Kale explained. "In essence, it will stabilize the subspace field around your relay stations during ignition sequences, making navigation safer and more predictable." Nia leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "I can calibrate it against the specific Higgs harmonics of the Tantalus sector," she offered. Jay looked between Alara and Nia, then back to Kale. His skepticism was evident, but there was a glimmer of consideration in his eyes. "Hellion cooperation with the Federation hasn't always been smooth." Kale remained unfazed by Jay's scrutiny. "True, Commander, but our goals align here. We both want stability in this sector." He reached into a pocket and produced a set of credentials, a holographic data slate displaying a direct mandate from Hellion civilian leadership. Jay examined the credentials carefully before nodding slowly. "Very well. Alara, Nia work with Lieutenant Kale to integrate his technology." Alara nodded, already turning back to her station. "On it, Commander." Nia stood and approached Kale, extending a hand. "Let's get this modulator calibrated," she said. As the two navigators began working together, Jay motioned for Kale to follow him into the crew lounge, a small room with comfortable seating and a holographic table displaying various star charts and tactical displays. The door slid shut behind them. Jay poured 2 cups of stimcaf and handed one to Kale. "So, Lieutenant," he began, his tone more conversational but still guarded, "what else do you know about these disturbances?" Kale took a sip before responding. "More than I can share openly," he said carefully. "But there is something you should be aware of." Jay raised an eyebrow. "Our intelligence indicates that the director, whoever is pulling the strings behind these incidents, has a history with Hellion. He's been identified as a known syndicate operative for decades, responsible for at least 3 previous corridor disruptions." Jay's grip on his cup tightened. "And why are you telling me this now?" Kale met Jay's gaze directly. "Because he is patient, methodical, and he always escapes. But perhaps together we can change that pattern." The room fell silent for a moment as Jay absorbed the information. Then, with a determined nod, he said, "Let's make sure this time is different, Lieutenant. Let's end this." Chapter 7. Ignition J. Corbett's grip tightened on the control stick as he piloted the sleek scout ship towards Outpost 1. The skeletal framework of the station loomed ahead, a stark silhouette against the pulsating glow of the dying red giant star. Its hull bore the scars of countless micrometeorite impacts, and the absence of running lights cast an eerie shadow over its decaying form. "Jay, you're drifting off course by 7 degrees to port." Nia Vasquez's voice crackled through the comms, her tone clipped with urgency. "Adjusting now." Jay banked the ship sharply, trusting Nia's calculations implicitly. The mass consenders had turned the star field into a deceitful labyrinth, but Nia was weaving through it with a precision that bordered on instinctual. Behind him, the rest of the squadron held formation, their engines humming in sync like a mechanical chorus. Among them was Harlan Driscoll's utility transport, a clunky beast bristling with jury-rigged equipment. The shield generator on its underside pulsed with a dim blue glow, a testament to Harlan's improvisational genius and the desperation of their mission. "Harlan, you're approaching the docking bay," Jay announced, his voice steady despite the churning in his gut. "Be careful out there." "We're not here for tea and biscuits, Commander," Harlan replied gruffly over the comms. The transport veered off from the squadron formation, its thrusters firing in controlled bursts as it maneuvered towards the station's docking bay. Jay watched as the transport disappeared into the maw of Outpost 1, then turned his attention back to the task at hand. He guided the scout ship alongside the station, searching for any signs of life or trouble. Kale, the Hellion guard, was already disembarking from another vessel in the squad and moving towards the station. His white-and-gold uniform stood out like a beacon against the grimy metal. "Commander," Nia's voice cut through his thoughts. "The mass consenders are still fluctuating. I'm recalibrating the Cathurian resonance core to compensate." Jay acknowledged her update with a curt nod, though she couldn't see it. He could feel the tension radiating from her even through the comms link. On the station, Harlan stepped onto the cold metal deck of the docking bay. The air was stale and heavy with dust. He flicked on his helmet light, casting long shadows across the abandoned corridor. His toolkit clanked against his side as he moved, each step echoing ominously in the silence. The primary power conduit was a thick cable snaking along the wall, coated in grime and corrosion. Harlan dropped to one knee, unzipping his toolkit with practiced ease. He pulled out a multimeter and probed the conduit, frowning at the readings. Dead as he suspected. With a grunt of effort, he opened an access panel nearby and began hot-wiring the primary conduit directly to the transport's reactor. Sparks flew as he made the connection, and the transport shuddered slightly in response. Harlan hoped it would be enough. Back on Haven-S Reach, Nia leaned over her console, eyes scanning the streams of data pouring in from the station. She adjusted variables in real time, her fingers dancing over the holographic controls. The Cathurian core hummed softly beneath her touch, its alien energy pulsing in sync with her adjustments. Harlan's voice crackled through the comms, rough and impatient. "Nia, I need a timing adjustment. This thing's got more faults than a leaky sieve." Nia didn't hesitate. "Give me 1 second." Her fingers flew over the controls, recalculating the synchronization pulse. 3 milliseconds, she announced. Harlan acknowledged with a grunt and set to work rewiring half the circuit. Sweat beaded on his brow as he double-checked each connection, his calloused hands moving with surprising delicacy. Jay watched the station's relay array from his vantage point, heart pounding in anticipation. If this didn't work... Suddenly, a beam of golden light erupted from the relay array, slicing through the debris field like a knife. It pierced the star field beyond, a beacon of life amidst the cosmic graveyard. "Ignition successful," Harlan's voice boomed over the comms, laced with triumph and relief. "The station is alive." A collective exhale seemed to ripple through the squadron as Jay let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The first battle was won, but the war for survival in this treacherous sector of space was far from over. Nia's voice came through steady and clear. "Jay, I'm patching you through to Harlan's feed. Let's coordinate next steps." Jay nodded, focusing on the new task ahead. The outpost might be alive, but there were countless dangers lurking in its shadows, both within and without. With Harlan securing the station's power grid and Kale providing security, they could start unraveling the mysteries of Outpost 1 and the secrets it held. The dance of deployment had just begun. Chapter 8, Debris and Deception. The cockpit of Jay's fighter hummed with a tense energy, the glow of the instrument panels casting sharp shadows across his focused face. The Tantalus edge stretched out before him, a chasm of twisted metal and shattered dreams, the remnants of a once great fleet now reduced to a treacherous graveyard. Outpost 2 loomed ahead, a tiny speck against the void, its strategic importance magnified by its precarious position. "All right, listen up," Jay's voice cut through the calm, steady and commanding. "We're diving into a minefield hotter than a Hellion sunspot. Mass consenders are making this place a nightmare to navigate. Kale, what's your read on the subspace?" Kale's response came through clear but distant, the resonance modulator in his Hellion Guard uniform causing a slight echo. "Subspace is volatile. The mass consenders are creating interference waves that could scramble our sensors at any moment. Be prepared for sudden shifts." Jay nodded, though Kale couldn't see it. "Understood. Spats, you're on the secondary vector. Hold tight until I give the word." Spats's voice piped up, eager but controlled. "Aye, squadron leader, in position and ready to move." Jay could almost see the young pilot's fingers hovering over his controls, eyes wide with a mix of excitement and nerves. He admired Spats's enthusiasm but hoped it wouldn't cloud his judgment in the heat of battle. "The plan stays the same," Jay continued. "I draw fire, you two identify targets. We need to take out those mass consenders fast. Kale, once we have a clear path, you move in and secure the outpost." A chorus of acknowledgments crackled over the comm. Jay took one last look at his instruments, the debris field sprawling like a metallic jungle below him. He engaged the thrusters, feeling the familiar lurch as his fighter dove into the maelstrom. The first volley of fire erupted from the shadows, streaks of energy lancing through the darkness. Jay's fingers danced over the controls, weaving his ship through the barrage with practiced ease. The mass consenders pulsed with an eerie glow, distorting reality around them, making it hard to discern friend from foe. "Jay, incoming." Spats's voice was sharp, his targeting systems already locking onto a cluster of masked targets. "Got them," Jay replied, sending a burst of counterfire. The mass consenders exploded in a shower of sparks and debris, but more took their place, the field seemingly endless. Kale's voice broke through the chaos. "Jay, I'm detecting a pattern to the interference. It's like they're trying to funnel you towards something." "Something or someone?" Jay growled, his eyes scanning the swirling mass of metal and energy. "I can't tell yet," Kale admitted, "but be cautious. This isn't just random chaos." Jay banked hard to the left, avoiding another barrage. Spats's voice came through again, more measured now, focused. "Squadron leader, I have visual on a large concentration of mass consenders. Looks like a nest." "Nest confirmed," Kale added. "It's pulsating with energy. If we can take it out, we might stabilize the subspace around here." Jay's grip tightened on the controls. "All right, let's do this. Spats, you're up. Target that nest and blow it sky high." Spats didn't hesitate. His fighter peeled off from Jay's wing, engines flaring as he accelerated towards the glowing heart of the debris field. Jay watched him go, a mixture of pride and worry churning in his gut. Then, with a grim smile, he dove back into the fray, his own ship a blur of speed and precision as he provided covering fire for his young wingman. The comm crackled with updates from Kale, guiding them through the shifting subspace, his Hellion training proving invaluable in navigating the chaos. Together, they pushed deeper into the minefield, each explosion bringing them closer to their goal. As Spats's fighter loomed over the nest of mass consenders, Jay held his breath. The young pilot didn't waver. With a roar that echoed through the comm, he unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, obliterating the pulsating mass of enemy tech. The subspace around them shuddered, the interference waves beginning to subside. Outpost 2 came into clearer view, its sensor array gleaming like a beacon in the darkness. "Kale, move in," Jay ordered, relief tinging his voice. Kale acknowledged, his resonance modulator humming louder as he approached the outpost. Jay and Spats stayed close, ready to provide support if needed. As Kale's ship docked with Outpost 2, Jay circled back, scanning for any remaining threats. The debris field seemed quieter now, the mass consender's relentless assault subdued but not vanquished. Spats's voice was steady but tired as he reported in. Nest destroyed, Squadron Leader. Heading back to your position. Jay nodded, though Spats couldn't see it. Good job, pilot. Let's regroup and assess the damage. With Outpost 2 secured, at least for now, Jay led his squadron out of the debris field, leaving behind a temporary calm in the midst of the Tantalus Edge's eternal storm. The battle was far from over, but they had won a critical victory today, a step closer to understanding the enemy and reclaiming what was lost. As they flew back towards safer skies, Jay glanced at his instruments one last time, Spatz's eager voice echoing in his mind. The young pilot had proven himself today, and that counted for more than any medal or accolade. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, pushing deeper into the Fireline to unravel its deadly secrets. Chapter 9, Fireline at the Tantalus Edge. The cockpit of the Havaness Reach trembled as Jay Corbett dove into the debris field surrounding Outpost 2. The fighter's engines roared, a symphony of raw power and desperation, as he navigated through a maze of spinning hull fragments and jagged metal shards. Each twist and turn was a dance with death, but Jay's hands were steady on the controls, his sharp green eyes focused on the chaos ahead. 40 meters to port, Alara Wynn's voice cut through the calm, tense but clear. A mine, cleverly disguised as an asteroid chunk, erupted in a fiery blast. The shockwave pounded against Havaness Reach, even though it was positioned at a safe distance for monitoring the battle. Alara gripped the edge of her console so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her dark skin glistened with sweat under the harsh lights of the bridge. She swallowed hard and kept her eyes on the sensors, ready to call out any new threats. Target vectors updated? Nia Vasquez's voice was calm but urgent. Her fingers danced over her console, adjusting the counter-spectrum settings with practiced ease. The mines are clustering in a precise pattern. This isn't random. Someone programmed their behavior. Jay's mind raced as he wove through the debris. He trusted Nia's analysis. If she said the mines were not acting randomly, then they had to assume an intelligent adversary was controlling them. Patching new solution to the squadron, and the comm crackled with Nia's updates. The data stream flowed into Jay's display, highlighting potential safe paths through the minefield. Suddenly, Spatz's voice broke through the tactical chatter. Squadron Leader, I'm breaking formation. Jay's heart skipped a beat. Spats, what are you doing? Return to position. His voice boomed over the comm, but there was no response. Spatz's fighter veered off course, flying an arc that defied any training manual Jay had ever read. The young pilot's maneuver was reckless, but Jay couldn't deny a spark of curiosity. What had Spats seen? Alara leaned forward in her seat. Jay, what do we do? We watch, Jay replied, his eyes locked on Spatz's fighter as it sliced through the debris field. He held his breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion that would signal Spatz's demise. But instead of a blast, Spatz's voice came steady and sure over the comm. Sector 2 is open, Squadron Leader. You are clear to proceed. Jay stared at his display in disbelief. Spats had found a gap, a single-frame opening where the mine's sensor mesh had a blind spot. The young pilot threaded his fighter through this narrow window with precision that belied his inexperience. Spats lined up on the nearest mine, and his targeting computer screamed acquisition. He fired. The mine detonated, and the explosion chain-reacted into the next mine and the next. A cascade of blasts cleared a quarter of the debris field in a spectacular display of fire and metal. Jay watched as Spats pulled his fighter up in a hard roll, escaping the blast radius by mere meters. The young pilot's calm voice cut through the comm once more. Sector 2 is open, Squadron Leader. You are clear to proceed. A grin spread across Jay's face as he led the squadron through the gap Spats had created. The Havaness Reach surged forward, engines burning hot and bright. Well done, Spats, Jay said, his voice tinged with pride and relief. That was impressive. Spatz's response was humble but filled with a newfound confidence. Just doing my part, Squadron Leader. Jay turned to Alara, who met his gaze with a mixture of awe and concern. We need to get through this quickly, he said. There's no telling when the enemy will adjust their tactics. Alara nodded. I'll keep monitoring for any changes in the minefield pattern. Nia chimed in, and I'll make sure our counter-spectrum is ready for anything else they throw at us. With renewed determination, Jay focused on the battle ahead. The path to Outpost 2 was clearer now, thanks to Spatz's daring maneuver. But the real test was yet to come. They had to hold the outpost and secure their victory. "All right, squad," Jay called over the comm. "Let's keep this momentum. We're not just clearing a path, we're taking back our ground." The Haven-S Reach and its squadron pressed forward, engines blazing through the newly opened sector, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the Tantalus edge. Chapter 10. Resonance. The dimly lit engineering deck of Outpost 2 hummed with an underlying tension, the air thick with the scent of oiled metal and the faint tang of ozone from the Cathurian core. Harlan Driscoll, his broad shoulders hunched over a tangle of cables and brackets, wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his grease-stained hand. Beside him, Cale stood tall and lean, amber-gold eyes focused intently on the resonance modulator in his grasp. The device hummed softly, its intricate design a stark contrast to the rugged, utilitarian tools Harlan favored. "All right, Cale," Harlan grunted, tightening another bracket with a hydraulic wrench. "Let's see if we can coax this thing back into line." Cale nodded, his fingers dancing over the modulator's controls. The Higgs field around the Cathurian core shimmered slightly as he adjusted the settings, attempting to synchronize it with Harlan's physical tweaks. The core itself, a pulsating orb of energy, flickered erratically, a visual testament to decades of neglect. "Keep it steady," Cale murmured, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. "I'm aligning the frequency now." Harlan's mechanical intuition guided him as he carefully adjusted each bracket, compensating for the core's unpredictable oscillations. The two men worked in silence, their movements synchronized by years of experience and a shared sense of urgency. Up on the bridge of the Haven-S Reach, Alara Wynn maintained a calm demeanor despite the whirlwind of activity around her. Her dark skin glistened slightly under the harsh fluorescent lights, and her warm brown eyes scanned the holographic displays with practiced efficiency. She barked orders to her crew, coordinating the synchronization effort between Outpost 2 and their own systems. "Alara," Aldous Price interjected, his voice thin and reedy. He stood rigidly at the edge of the bridge, his ill-fitting formal uniform stark against the functional attire of the crew around him. "I must insist on halting this unauthorized activation." Ilara's gaze flickered briefly to Price before returning to her consoles. "Without missing a beat," she replied, "I am operating under the border sector order, which Admiralty itself cannot override during an active emergency." Her tone brooked no argument. Price's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, his thin mustache twitching with indignation. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a datapad to file yet another formal objection. But Alara had already turned her back on him, focusing on the critical task at hand. Back on Outpost 2's engineering deck, Harlan let out a grunt of satisfaction as he secured the final bracket. "All right, Cale," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Let's see if that did the trick." Cale adjusted one last setting on the modulator, his fingers hovering over the control panel. The core's oscillations began to stabilize, its erratic flickering smoothing into a steady pulse. A soft golden light emanated from it, growing brighter and more consistent with each passing second. "Harlan," Cale said, a note of excitement in his voice, "I think we've got it." The bridge erupted into a chorus of cheers as the synchronization was confirmed. The golden light from Outpost 2 aligned perfectly with that from Outpost 1, creating a shimmering corridor through space, two beacons signaling the rebirth of an ancient pathway. Alara allowed herself a small smile, her shoulders relaxing slightly as she surveyed the bridge. She turned to Price, who stood sulkily in the corner, datapad clenched in his hand. "Mr. Price," she said, her voice softer but no less authoritative, "it seems our unauthorized activation has borne fruit." Price's face flushed red, but he said nothing as Alara stepped forward to oversee the final integration protocols. The Haven-S Reach and Outpost 2 hummed with energy, the first steps of a new era unfolding before them. As Harlan and Cale exited the engineering deck, they exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of their shared triumph over the chaos. The path ahead was uncertain, but for now, the Tantalus edge had been tamed, if only briefly. Chapter 11. Shadows of the ghost station, the Haven-S Reach hung in the void like a silent sentinel. its engines humming softly as it maintained a cautious distance from the Tantalus corridor's debris field. Jay Corbett stood at the edge of the bridge, his green eyes scanning the holographic display that flickered to life before him. The outlines of twisted metal and shattered hulls danced across the screen, each fragment a testament to the corridor's violent history. Ilara Wynn approached from behind, her orange flight suit contrasting sharply against the dim blue glow of the bridge lights. "Remember, Jay," she said, her voice steady yet firm, "stealth is key. We need eyes on that station, not a direct engagement." Jay nodded, his gaze never leaving the display. "Understood, Ilara. Kale and I will be in and out before they even know we were here." Kale stood beside them, his amber gold eyes reflecting the holographic chaos. The white and gold uniform of the Hellion Guard was stark against the dim lighting, a beacon of discipline amidst the cluttered bridge. "The shuttle is ready," he said, his tone calm but resolute. "The resonance field should mask your signature effectively." Jay turned to Ilara, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I'll take good care of it." He clapped Kale on the shoulder. "Let's load up." Minutes later, Jay and Kale were sealed inside the shuttle, its sleek form gleaming under the harsh light of the Haven-S Reches hangar bay. The fighter, a compact but formidable vessel, waited nearby, its engines thrumming with anticipation. Jay climbed into the cockpit, his gray pilot jacket fitting snugly around him, and ran through the pre-flight checklist with practiced efficiency. Kale, in the shuttle, initiated the sequence to deploy the modified resonance field. The air inside the small vessel hummed with an otherworldly energy as the field activated, creating a shimmering barrier around them. He gave Jay a thumbs-up signal through the cockpit glass. Jay responded with a nod and engaged the fighter's thrusters. The ship eased forward, its sleek form cutting through the hangar bay doors and into the vast expanse of space. Kale followed in the shuttle, their trajectories synchronized to maintain the illusion of a single vessel. They entered the outer edge of the debris field cautiously, navigating through the labyrinth of jagged metal and shattered remnants of past conflicts. Jay's hands danced over the controls with precision, adjusting course minutely to avoid detection by any lingering sensors. The ghost station emerged from behind a curtain of debris like a specter rising from the void. A massive structure shrouded in darkness, its hull plating absorbing most of the ambient light. The running lights were barely visible, flickering faintly against the blackness of space. Jay recognized the design immediately. A pre-war Federal Communications relay, one of a class long thought decommissioned. "Director's lair," he murmured, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and grim determination. "We've found it." Kale's voice crackled over the comms, steady but urgent. "Keep your distance, Jay. We need to confirm the layout before we get any closer." Jay acknowledged the warning and adjusted the fighter's trajectory, circling the station at a safe distance. The shuttle stayed close, its resonance field flickering with each subtle shift in course. They moved like shadows through the debris, careful to avoid any sudden movements that might alert the director's defenses. The ghost station was a fortress, its exterior bristling with weaponry and defensive arrays. Jay could see the telltale signs of extensive modifications: reinforced plating, advanced sensor clusters, and what appeared to be heavy artillery emplacements. This wasn't just a relay station. It was a war machine disguised as an old relic. They continued their silent dance around the structure, gathering data with every pass. Kale's shuttle maintained its cover, the resonance field humming steadily as they avoided detection. Jay's fighter, equipped with state-of-the-art scanning equipment, recorded every detail: the placement of turrets, the location of entry points, and the layout of internal structures. After several orbits, Jay signaled Kale to return to their rendezvous point within the debris field. The shuttle fell into formation beside him as they made their way back towards the Haven-S Reach, their mission accomplished without a hitch. As they re-entered the hangar bay, Ilara was waiting for them, her expression a mix of relief and urgency. "Anything?" she asked, her eyes scanning Jay's face for answers. Jay stepped out of the fighter, his movements weary but triumphant. "We found it all right. It's heavily defended, but we got enough data to plan our next move." Kale emerged from the shuttle, his uniform pristine despite the intensity of their mission. "The resonance field held," he reported. "No signs of detection." Alara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. Good work, both of you, she gestured towards the bridge. Let's get that data analyzed and start planning our strategy. As they walked back to the bridge, Jay couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The ghost station was more than just a base. It was a testament to the director's power and cunning. But for now, they had the upper hand, knowledge, stealth, and a glimmer of hope in the endless void of the Tantalus corridor. The battle ahead loomed large, but Jay Corbett and his crew were ready to face it head-on. Chapter 12. Echoes of alarm, the dim amber glow of the emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the grimy walls of the ghost station, each corridor stretching into infinity like a maze designed by some mad architect. Jay Corbett led the way, his gray pilot jacket blending with the gloom as he navigated the labyrinthine passages. Kale followed closely behind, his white and gold Hellion Guard uniform a stark contrast against the decaying surroundings. The maintenance access port had been a tight squeeze, but they'd made it inside without incident. Now the air was thick with dust and the hum of dormant machinery. Jay's sharp green eyes scanned the walls lined with salvaged federal equipment and modified mask-encender arrays, their purposes mysterious yet menacing. They rounded another bend, and there it was, the central control room. A vast chamber filled with holographic displays flickering to life, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the cold metal floor. Hundreds of sensors fed real-time data into the air, creating a dance of information that Jay found both awe-inspiring and terrifying. At the heart of it all stood a control console, its high-backed chair empty. The director's absence was palpable, yet his presence lingered like a specter. Jay approached cautiously, Kale at his side, their boots echoing in the silence. Nia's voice crackled through their comms, her tone urgent but controlled. "Jay, Kale, what do you see?" she asked, her digital avatar monitoring from the Haveness reach. "I'm looking at a console configuration unlike anything I've seen," Jay replied, snapping photos with his datapad. "It's not centralized control, it's distributed." Kale leaned over the console, his amber gold eyes scanning the intricate arrays of controls and displays. "This isn't just about running the station," he murmured. "He's orchestrating something bigger from here." Nia's voice came through again, confirming Jay's suspicions. "It's a distributed command network. The director isn't physically present, he's controlling this remotely. His actual location is likely aboard a ship within the Tantalus corridor." Jay nodded grimly, continuing to document every detail. The layout of the station, the console configurations, and the display feeds, they would be invaluable to Alara planning. But time was running out. Suddenly an alarm pierced the silence, shattering the eerie calm. Jay's heart jumped into his throat as he whipped around, Kale's hand already on his sidearm. "We've been detected," Jay growled. "Emergency bulkheads are activating," Nia shouted over the comms. "You have 90 seconds to reach your ships." They sprinted back through the corridors, the echo of their footsteps mingling with the wailing alarms. Kale's resonance modulator screamed as it was targeted by an active scan, a high-pitched whine that set Jay's teeth on edge. "Stay close," Jay yelled over the comms, his voice barely audible over the cacophony. They took sharp turns, leaping over debris and dodging fallen beams. The station seemed to come alive around them, bulkheads slamming shut with a deafening clang, sealing off escape routes one by one. Jay's mind raced, calculating their options, plotting their course. "Kale, we need to find an alternative route," he barked, skidding to a halt at another blocked passage. Kale's amber gold eyes flashed as he scanned the area, his training kicking in. "There," he pointed to a narrow service duct barely visible in the shadows. Jay nodded and they dove in head first, wriggling through the tight space with desperation fueling their movements. The duct opened into another corridor, this one less cluttered but no less treacherous. They burst out, lungs burning, and saw the exit hatch ahead, just meters away. The countdown timer in Jay's mind ticked away relentlessly. 80 seconds, 75. "Nia, open the hatch," Jay panted into his comms. The hatch slid open with a hiss, revealing the cold vacuum of space beyond. Their ships, sleek and silver against the black backdrop, hovered nearby. 60 seconds left. Jay dove through the hatch first, Kale hot on his heels. They hit the ground running toward their ships, the emergency bulkheads closing in behind them like jaws snapping shut. 50 seconds. They reached their ships simultaneously, Jay's hands flying over the controls as he initiated launch sequences. The engines roared to life, a symphony of power and urgency. 40 seconds? 30. With a final blast of thrusters, they shot out into space, leaving the ghost station behind in a cloud of debris and static. As they cleared the immediate area, Jay's breath hitched with relief, barely making it. "Nia, we're clear," he gasped, his voice raw from exertion. "I have you both on sensors," Nia confirmed. "Welcome back to Haven's Reach." Jay glanced at Kale, who met his gaze with a nod of acknowledgement. They had made it out alive, but the director's game was far from over. The data they'd gathered would change everything, if they could make it back to Alara in one piece. As the stars stretched out before them, Jay couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. But for now, they were safe, and that was enough. Chapter 13. Fireline at the Tantalus edge. The deafening roar of Jay's engines echoed through the narrow corridors of the ghost station as he wrestled his fighter into a series of evasive maneuvers. The hull shook violently, and the cockpit filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burning metal. Turret fire from the automated defense grid lashed out like whips of light, searing past his canopy with inches to spare. Jay's hands danced over the controls, fingers flying with practiced precision. He banked hard to starboard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of micro-missiles that exploded in his wake. The fighter groaned in protest, but held firm under the strain. Behind him, Kale's shuttle trailed like a wounded beast, its port engine housing leaking atmosphere in a trailing cloud of vapor. Kale's amber-gold eyes flicked between the console readings and the chaos outside. His hands were steady on the controls despite his own fighter's faltering systems. The resonance field flickered dangerously, but managed to hold, maintaining their shaky flight path through the debris-laden corridor. Trust was a luxury in this maelstrom, but Jay had proven himself more than once. The ghost station's drives thrummed to life, a low rumble that resonated through every bulkhead like the heartbeat of some ancient Leviathan awakening. The station began to move with a ponderous grace, its hull groaning as it shifted into pursuit mode. Alarms blared and lights flickered ominously. Jay's voice cut through the comms channel, sharp and urgent. "Haven's Reach, this is Jay. We have the station mobile and heading for the corridor entrance. We need an intercept course." Alara Wynn's response came almost instantly, her voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "Copy that, Jay. Intercept course calculated. However, the third ignition must happen immediately. Outpost 3 is not ready. Cathurian core synchronization is incomplete. Overriding protocols now." Jay's grip tightened on the yoke as he acknowledged Alara's transmission. The corridor ahead was a gauntlet of wreckage and flaring debris, but his fighter sliced through it like a knife. Every twist and turn was calculated to maximize distance from the station's relentless pursuit. Kale's shuttle lagged behind, its damaged engine screaming in protest. He could feel the resonance field weakening with each passing moment. "Jay," he transmitted, voice tight, "I'm losing control here. Need to dump some weight or risk going critical." "Hold on, Kale," Jay shouted back, his eyes scanning for a viable escape route. "Alara, what's our status?" The comms crackled with static before Alara's voice came through. "Ignition sequence initiated. Third ignition in 5 seconds. Hold your positions." 4, 3. Jay's fighter dipped low, skimming the hull of a derelict ship as he evaded another volley of turret fire. Kale mimicked his maneuver, narrowly avoiding a collision with a drifting debris field. 2. Alara's voice was tense but clear. 1 second to ignition. 1. The corridor ahead flashed white-hot as the third ignition tore through space-time. The force of it shook Jay and Kale's ships like rag dolls. For an instant, the stars seemed to stretch and warp, then snap back into focus. Jay's fighter stabilized, engines roaring to full throttle. He glanced at his scanner. Alara had pulled off a miracle. The ghost station was caught in the gravitational wake of the third ignition, its pursuit stymied by the sudden shift. "Kale," Jay called out, relief tinging his voice, "we've bought ourselves some time." The shuttle's damaged engine whined but held steady. Kale managed a grim smile. "For now. But we need to find somewhere safe to land and patch this bird up." Jay nodded, though Kale couldn't see it. We'll regroup at the rendezvous point. Ilara, status update? Ilara's reply was immediate. Third ignition successful. Station pursuit halted. We have a window. Recommend immediate evac to secondary coordinates. Over. The ghosts of the ghost station faded into the background as Jay and Kale navigated through the new landscape of warped space. The fighters' engines hummed in harmony, their pilots locked in a silent agreement. Their fight was far from over, but for now they had cheated death. "Let's get out of here," Jay muttered to himself, eyes fixed on the horizon ahead. One step at a time. The stars stretched before them like an endless canvas, painted with the fireline of their journey, a testament to survival amidst the chaos of the Tantalus edge. Chapter 14. Resonance. The emergency lights of Outpost 2 flickered ominously, casting long, dancing shadows across Harlan Driscoll's grimy face. His hands, stained black from engine grease and spark burns, hovered over the console like a pianist poised to play a deadly symphony. Ilara Wynn's voice echoed in his earpiece, urgent and unyielding. "Harlan, we need that third ignition now. The director is almost at the corridor." Harlan's gaze flicked over the oscillating readings on the screen. The third outpost core pulsed with an erratic frequency, a staccato rhythm that set his teeth on edge. He could taste the metallic tang of fear in his mouth. Remotely triggering it was suicide, but not doing so meant condemning Jay and Kale to whatever horrors lurked within the director's ghost station. Damn it all, he thought, slamming his fist against the console. Sparks erupted from a loose wire and he jerked back, shielding his face with a grimace. He took a deep breath, fingers dancing over the controls. "All right, Ilara. Here goes nothing." His hand hovered over the trigger button. The core's oscillations grew wilder like a heart monitor flatlining. Harlan gritted his teeth and slammed his palm down on the button. The station convulsed. The hull groaned like a tortured beast, metal screeching against metal. Conduits ruptured, spewing steam and sparks. Harlan's console exploded in a shower of glass and fire. He staggered back, arms thrown up to protect his face from the shrapnel. But the core held. Somehow, it endured the catastrophic ignition sequence, resonating with a frequency that should have shattered the station into oblivion. Then, amidst the chaos, came a voice. Kale's voice, distant and ethereal, cutting through the cacophony like a clarion call. His damaged shuttle resonance modulator, barely functional, was singing in harmony with the rogue core. The frequencies intertwined, weaved together into a symphony of impossible proportions. Harlan stared at the console, agape. The readings stabilized, the wild oscillations smoothing into a steady hum. A beam of golden light burst forth from the third station, piercing the darkness of the corridor. It synchronized with the other two beacons, three pillars of luminescent power converging in the abyss. A shudder ran through the outposts as if they were awakening from a long slumber. The air crackled with energy, and Harlan could swear he felt the pulse of something ancient and vast stirring within the station's cores. "Ilara," he rasped into his comm, voice barely audible over the din. "It worked, I think." Her response was instant, relief palpable in her words. "Harlan, that's incredible, but we need to move fast. The director won't be pleased with this development." Harlan nodded, though she couldn't see him. He turned back to the console, wincing as he brushed aside shattered controls and singed wiring. There was work to be done, systems to realign, and a fight brewing in the corridor. But for now, three beacons burned bright against the darkness, their resonances intertwined, marking a path into the unknown. Harlan straightened, resolve hardening within him. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Chapter 15. The unyielding corridor, the hum of the Federation flagship's engines filled the bridge, a steady pulse that matched Ilara Wynn's heartbeat. She stood rigidly at the communications console, her dark skin glistening slightly under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her short black hair was tucked neatly behind her ears, and her warm brown eyes were fixed on the viewport, where the golden corridor of subspace stretched out like a shimmering ribbon against the backdrop of stars and debris. "Director," she spoke into the hailing frequency, her voice cold and precise. "You are surrounded. 3 relay stations are online, a stable subspace corridor is established, and your mass consender network has been exposed. I offer you one chance to surrender." A pause followed her declaration, then a cultured, measured laugh echoed through the bridge speakers. The director's voice was smooth as velvet, yet laced with an unnerving confidence. "You've done well, Commissarin Wynne," he replied. "I must thank you for restoring the corridor for me. It will make my next operation so much easier." Ilara's grip on the console tightened. She exchanged a glance with Jay Corbett, who stood nearby, his tan skin flushed slightly from exertion and the adrenaline of their recent escape. Jay leaned in closer to Ilara as she turned off the hailing frequency. "I recognize that trajectory," he said, his sharp green eyes scanning the tactical displays. "He's heading for Hellion space." Kale, still catching his breath but standing tall in his white and gold Hellion Guard uniform, nodded grimly. His amber gold eyes were fixed on the same display. "The director is planning something at Hellion itself," he confirmed. Ilara made a split-second decision. "Jay, you're to take your squadron and pursue. Kale, you'll lead them. Use your knowledge of Hellion defensive positions." Kale stepped forward, his hand already reaching for the comms device clipped to his belt. "I'm on it," he said, determination etched into every line of his sun-bronzed face. But Ilara raised a hand, stopping him. Her expression was unreadable through the viewport, her voice steady but firm. "No, the corridor is not yet secure. We have ships trapped in the debris field and mines to clear. Jay has a job to do here." Jay looked at her, his gaze searching hers for a moment before he nodded, understanding the weight of her decision. He turned to Kale. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice tinged with a mix of frustration and acceptance. Kale's shoulders slumped slightly, but he obeyed without question, stepping back from the console. His eyes met Ilara's briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Ilara turned back to the viewport, her gaze sweeping over the golden corridor. "We secure this perimeter," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Then we deal with whatever comes next." The bridge was filled with the controlled chaos of orders being barked and acknowledged, tactical displays updating in real time. Jay moved swiftly through the crowd, issuing commands to his pilots, ensuring every ship in their formation knew its role. Ilara watched him work, a sense of pride and concern mingling within her. She had made the hard choice, to secure the corridor rather than pursue the director, but the cost weighed heavily on her mind. The director was out there, slipping deeper into Hellion space with every passing second, his intentions as nebulous and dangerous as ever. As she stood there, the weight of command settling over her like a mantle, Ilara knew one thing for certain: this was far from over. The fight to secure the subspace corridor was just the beginning. Whatever the director had planned for Hellion would test them all in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But for now, she focused on the task at hand, ensuring that every ship, every crew member under her command knew their duty and were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Federation flagship shuddered slightly as it maneuvered into position, its engines thrumming with newfound urgency. The corridor was theirs to hold, and Ilara Wynne would see it through, no matter the cost. Chapter 16. The weight of choices, the corridor was finally secure. Federal engineers swarmed through the 3 relay stations, their boots echoing against the cold metal floors as they methodically set up permanent installations. The mask-and-sender devices, those insidious tools of deception and destruction, were collected and systematically destroyed. Nia, her eyes bloodshot from endless hours at her console, worked tirelessly to map the remaining hazards and update the navigation database with critical corrections. Jay Corbett stood in the doorway of Ilara Wynne's temporary quarters aboard the Haven-S Reach. The room was small but functional, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Ilara sat at a desk cluttered with hollow screens displaying mission reports, her orange flight suit jacket draped over the back of her chair. Her dark skin had a palpable weariness etched into its lines. Ilara looked up as Jay entered, her warm brown eyes meeting his sharp green gaze. "Jay," she acknowledged softly, leaning back in her chair and rubbing her temples. "Ilara," he replied, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. "You look like you've been through hell." A faint smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Feel like it too, but we're here. That's what matters." Jay nodded, pulling up a stool to sit across from her. "We made it. We secured the corridor." He paused, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I wanted to pursue him, you know. The director." Ilara's eyes met his steadily. "I knew you did." There was a silence between them, a space filled with unspoken words and shared burdens. Jay leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Why didn't you let me?" Alara took a deep breath, her gaze drifting to the reports scattered across her desk. The corridor wasn't secure. There were still ships in danger, lives at risk. And the director. He knew exactly where he was going. Chasing him then would have meant abandoning everything we had built. Jay nodded slowly, his expression inscrutable. "You're right. I see that now." He looked around the room, his eyes landing on a hollow screen displaying a message from Hellion civilian leadership. Alara followed his gaze and sighed. "They want to discuss the corridor agreement formally this time." Jay raised an eyebrow. The director's attack must have scared them into cooperation. "I think so," Alara agreed, turning back to him. "And there's more. They've offered me a new posting." She paused, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of emotion. "Commissioner for Key Routes and Special Corridors, based at Hellion." Jay looked at her, the weight of her words settling between them. There was a moment, a brief, weighted silence, where something unspoken passed between them. A mixture of regret, understanding, and a hint of something deeper. Alara held his gaze for a heartbeat longer before turning back to her report. Jay stood up, the stool scraping softly against the floor. "Congratulations, Alara," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. "It's a well-deserved promotion." She smiled weakly, not looking up from her work. "Thank you, Jay." She didn't add anything else. There was nothing more to say. Jay turned and left the room, closing the door softly behind him. The corridor outside seemed quieter now, the echoes of their shared past mingling with the distant hum of engineers at work. As he walked away, Alara's words echoed in his mind. Chasing him then would have meant abandoning everything we had built. It was a reminder of sacrifices made and choices yet to be faced. The weight of their decisions hung heavy in the air, a silent testament to the unspoken bond forged in the Fireline at the Tantalus edge. Chapter 17. New Horizons. The Tantalus corridor hummed with a renewed energy that was almost palpable. Federal ships glided through the vast expanse of space, their hulls gleaming under the distant starlight. Convoys moved with precision, guided by the new relay network that Jay's squadron had helped establish. The ghost station and the director were mere echoes now, faded memories in the annals of the corridor's tumultuous history. Outpost 1 loomed before Jay as he stood on its observation deck, a sprawling structure of steel and glass designed to oversee the entire corridor. The station had been transformed from a makeshift outpost to a fully operational patrol base, complete with state-of-the-art monitoring systems and quarters for his squad. It was a far cry from the cramped corridors of their previous stations. Jay's gray pilot jacket hung loosely on his frame as he gazed out at the endless expanse. The sharp green eyes that had seen so much conflict now held a mixture of relief and determination. This was his new home, and his mission was clear: to ensure the safety of every ship that passed through this vital route. The intercom on the deck buzzed softly, pulling Jay from his thoughts. Nia's voice crackled through the speaker. "Commander Corbett, you're needed on the bridge. It's time for your patrol shift." Jay nodded, though no one was there to see it. "On my way," he replied, turning away from the panoramic view. As he made his way to the bridge, Jay reflected on the past week. The promotions had come swiftly and unexpectedly. Nia Vasquez, with her sharp brown eyes and unyielding intellect, was now Chief Communications Officer for the entire corridor network. Harlan Driscoll, ever the reliable engineer, had been elevated to oversee the maintenance of the relay stations. Spatz, the eager young pilot who had proven his mettle time and again, received a commendation for his heroics and secured a permanent spot in Jay's squadron. The corridors of Outpost 1 buzzed with activity as Jay walked toward the bridge. Crew members nodded respectfully to him, their uniforms crisp and their steps purposeful. This new base was a testament to the hard-fought victories and sacrifices made by his team. Entering the bridge, Jay found Nia already engrossed in her consoles, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. She glanced up as he approached, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Good to have you back, Commander," she said, pushing her thick-rimmed glasses further up the bridge of her nose. Jay returned the smile briefly before taking his seat at the main console. "Status report?" Nia's eyes flicked over several screens simultaneously. All systems are nominal. Convoys are on schedule, and we've had no unusual activity in the past hour. Jay nodded, his gaze shifting to the main display where a real-time map of the corridor flickered to life. The routes were clear, the paths illuminated with streams of data points representing each ship's trajectory. "Keep it that way," Jay said, settling into the familiar rhythm of command. Before they could delve deeper into the shift details, an alert chimed from one of Nia's consoles. She glanced at the screen and then back to Jay, her expression neutral but attentive. "Commander, we have a visitor approaching the outpost." Jay raised an eyebrow. "Visitor, who is it?" Nia consulted her display again. "It's Kale. He requests permission to dock." Kale's departure had been bittersweet for Jay. The Hellion Guard, with his tall, lean frame and amber gold eyes, was a reminder of the alliances forged under fire. Their final moments together had been quiet, a silent acknowledgement of trust earned through shared trials. Jay hesitated briefly before responding. "Grant him clearance. Send a shuttle to meet him." Nia relayed the orders, her voice calm and efficient. Within minutes, the shuttle's telemetry appeared on the bridge's display, confirming Kale's approach. Jay watched as the shuttle docked smoothly with Outpost 1, feeling a sense of closure mixed with anticipation. He stood up from his console, giving Nia a nod. "I'll be back shortly." Nia nodded in return, understanding that this was more than just a routine visit. "Take your time, Commander." Jay walked to the docking bay, where Kale emerged from the shuttle, his white and gold uniform still pristine despite the journey through space. The two men stood facing each other for a moment before Jay extended his hand. "Kale," Jay said simply. Kale took the offered hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Jay." There were no more words needed between them. The silence spoke volumes of their shared experiences and mutual respect. After a few moments, Kale stepped back, his expression thoughtful. "I wanted to thank you again, Jay, for trusting me when others wouldn't." Jay shrugged slightly, his green eyes steady. "You earned it." Kale nodded, then looked around the bustling outpost. "This place is impressive. You'll do good work here." "I intend to," Jay replied. Another pause stretched between them before Kale spoke again. "I must return to Hellion now. There are matters that require my attention there." Jay understood without needing further explanation. The duties of a Hellion guard were never-ending, just as his own responsibilities were eternal. Kale extended his hand once more, and Jay took it. Their grip was firm, a silent promise to stand together, no matter the distance or time between them. As Kale turned to leave, Jay watched him go, feeling a strange sense of finality. The Hellion guard walked back to the shuttle, his form straight and unyielding against the backdrop of stars. Jay returned to the bridge, finding Nia still engrossed in her duties. She looked up as he entered, sensing the shift in his demeanor. "All set?" she asked softly. Jay nodded, taking his seat once more. "All set." The observation deck was a stark reminder of what lay ahead, the endless stream of convoys and the vigilant watch they kept over the Tantalus corridor. Jay's gaze fell on the ships moving through space with purposeful precision, each one a testament to their hard-won victories. "Nia," he said after a moment, "let's get back to work." Nia smiled, her fingers already dancing over the consoles once more. "Aye, Commander." The bridge hummed with activity as Jay settled into his new role. The Tantalus corridor was secure, and his team stood ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 18. Starlight interlude. The Haven-S Reach hummed with a symphony of distant machinery and the soft whispers of vented air. A lullaby for Alara Wynn as she stood at the viewport of her cabin. The stars stretched out before her like an endless tapestry of diamonds on velvet. Each pinprick of light, a world untouched, or a memory forged in the crucible of duty. Her reflection gazed back at her, the warm brown eyes echoing the vastness outside, the short black hair framing a face etched with determination and a hint of melancholy. Her new posting loomed on the horizon like a distant nebula, commissioner for key routes based at Hellion. The Federation's trust in her was both a burden and an honor. She had been handed authority over the entire Tantalus corridor network and tasked with extending its tendrils toward the outer sectors. It was a monumental responsibility, one that sent a ripple of excitement and trepidation through her. A soft chime announced Jay Corbett's arrival at her door. He stood there, his tan skin glowing under the cabin's soft lighting, wheat-blonde hair neatly trimmed, sharp green eyes scanning the room before settling on her. His gray pilot jacket was crisp, a testament to his discipline and readiness for whatever came next. "Jay," she greeted, stepping aside to let him in. "You made it just in time." He nodded, holding out a small, unassuming device. "A parting gift," he said, placing the navigation chip in her palm. It was warm from his touch, the edges smooth against her fingers. "Every confirmed safe passage through the corridor thought you might find it useful." Alara accepted the chip, their hands lingering for a moment longer than necessary. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and shared histories. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight beyond. "I have something to ask of you," she began, tucking the chip into her pocket. "Hellion needs a liaison, someone I trust, someone who understands federal operations." Jay's gaze sharpened, his expression unreadable. "Go on." The Hellion government had requested him specifically, she explained. He would be the federal observer attached to the commissioner's office. Her office. The weight of her words hung in the air, a proposal that carried implications beyond mere duty. Jay studied her face, searching for any sign of hesitation or doubt. She met his gaze steadily, unflinching. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded slowly. "I'll need to think about it," he said, his voice low and measured. Alara understood. The decision was not one to be made lightly. She stepped closer to the viewport, her hand resting on the frame just inches from his. The stars outside seemed to pulse with a silent rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat that matched their own. She moved her hands slightly until their fingers brushed. Neither of them pulled away. The touch was electric, a spark in the half-shadow cast by the cabin's dim lights. Alara felt the heat of his skin, the calluses from years of flying etched into his fingertips. It was a silent promise, a bridge between two souls who had navigated the treacherous currents of duty and desire. They stood there together, gazing out at the cosmos, their breaths synchronizing with the gentle hum of the starship. The universe stretched before them, vast and unpredictable, a reflection of the journey they were about to embark upon. One filled with challenges, discoveries, and perhaps a deeper connection forged in the fires of destiny. The Haven-S Reach prepared to depart for its new home port, carrying with it not just Alara Wynne and Jay Corbett, but the echoes of their shared past and the whispered promises of what might be. The stars watched over them, silent sentinels guarding the path ahead as they stepped into the unknown together. Chapter 19. Sparks and echoes, the sterile white walls of the federal hospital ward hummed with a quiet efficiency that belied the chaos outside. Harlan Driscoll lay propped up in his bed, bandages swathing his arms like twin cocoons. His broad shoulders, usually a beacon of strength, seemed smaller beneath the crisp sheets, but his spirit was undiminished. Mutton chops framed a face etched with lines of fatigue and pain, yet his eyes sparkled with a mischievous gleam. Spats perched on the edge of Harlan's bed, his slight frame bouncing slightly as he leaned in to share some joke or another. "So, Chief, when they gave you those bandages, did they say anything about turning you into a walking candle?" Spats chuckled, his eager expression contagious. Harlan grinned, his voice rough but steady. "Well, kid, at least I won't need a flashlight in the engine room anymore. They've dubbed me Sparks around here." Spats laughed loudly, drawing the attention of a few passing nurses who shook their heads indolently. Just as Harlan was about to retort with another quip, Nia Vasquez entered the room, her thick-rimmed glasses reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. "Gentlemen," she acknowledged, her sharp brown eyes flicking between the two men. She held a datapad in one hand, tapping it absently. "Alara sent me with some news for you, Harlan." Harlan raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Oh, what's up?" Nia paused dramatically before delivering her message. "You've been awarded the Federal Star for meritorious service." The room fell silent. Spatz's grin faded momentarily as he looked at Harlan, who was rendered speechless for perhaps the first time in his life. Nia watched him closely, a rare softness in her expression. Spats broke the silence with an inappropriate quip that earned him a sharp shove from Nia. "Hey, watch it!" he protested, rubbing his arm playfully. Harlan chuckled, finally finding his voice again. It's an honor," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "I didn't expect this." Nia nodded, handing him the datapad. "It's well-deserved. You saved a lot of lives out there." As Harlan scrolled through the details on the datapad, Spatz leaned over to read along, his grin returning. Nia rolled her eyes but allowed the moment of camaraderie. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, a solemn gathering took place. The air was thick with a mix of reverence and grief as family members, colleagues, and friends gathered for a memorial service. A quiet hum of whispers filled the chamber, punctuated by occasional sniffs and the rustle of uniforms. Ilara Wynn stood at the front, her dark skin glowing under the soft lights. She wore an orange Federation flight suit, the color stark against the somber backdrop. Her short black hair framed a face etched with sorrow, but her warm brown eyes held a steely resolve. Behind her, a holographic display flickered to life, showing images of the 3 pilots who had given their lives during the corridor operation. Lieutenant Amelia Hart, Corporal Lee Chen, and Sergeant Ava Patel. Ilara's voice was steady as she read their names aloud, each syllable heavy with meaning. Lieutenant Amelia Hart, Corporal Lee Chen, Sergeant Ava Patel. The names echoed through the chamber, a haunting reminder of the cost paid for victory. As the last name faded into silence, Ilara stepped forward, holding a small wreath adorned with blue and silver flowers. She approached the memorial alcove, her footsteps echoing softly on the polished floor. With deliberate care, she placed the wreath beneath the holographic portraits of the fallen pilots. Her expression was solemn, eyes fixed on the images of those who had sacrificed so much. The weight of their loss pressed heavily upon her shoulders, but there was also a quiet strength in her stance, a silent vow to honor their memory. The chamber fell into a hushed reverence as Ilara stepped back, allowing others to come forward with their tributes. The memorial service continued, a poignant blend of grief and tribute, reminding everyone present of the human cost behind every triumph. As Ilara watched the stream of people paying their respects, she felt a deep sense of responsibility. She thought of Harlan's recovery, of Spatz's eager spirit, and of Nia's unwavering dedication. Each story wove into the tapestry of their shared mission, a fireline drawn at the Tantalus edge, where victory was hard-won but not without cost. The chapter ended with Ilara's solemn gaze lingering on the memorial alcove, her heart heavy yet resolute. The echoes of loss and triumph intertwined in the stillness, a reminder that even amidst the stars, humanity endured. Chapter 20. Opening the gate, the void stretched out before J. Corbett like a canvas painted with a trillion shimmering diamonds, each one a silent sentinel in the vast expanse of space. The Tantalus corridor unfurled beneath his gaze, a 3-dimensional ribbon of navigable currents between the stars. 3 beacons pulsed at its edges, casting golden halos that intersected to form a steady, unblinking triangle, the symbol of federal control and order amidst the chaos of the cosmos. From the bridge of the Vanguard's Pride, Jay's fully outfitted patrol ship, he watched as convoy after convoy of ships slipped through the corridor. Their navigation lights blinked in rhythmic patterns, like lanterns guiding weary travelers home. The sight sent a surge of pride and relief through him. This was what they'd fought for, what so many had sacrificed to secure. "Commander, coming up on the first heading change," the navigator announced, his voice crisp over the hum of the bridge. Jay nodded, acknowledging the update without taking his eyes off the corridor. "Ready on my mark." The navigator's fingers danced over his console, prepping the ship for the course adjustment. Jay could feel the familiar vibration beneath his feet, the hum of power coursing through the vessel as it readied to respond to his command. "Mark," Jay said, his voice steady and clear. He took the con himself, his hand settling firmly on the throttle. The Vanguard's Pride responded with smooth precision, pivoting gracefully to align with the new heading. The bridge crew moved in silent synchrony around him, each member focused on their duties. Monitors flickered with data streams, and the air thrummed with a quiet tension, anticipation laced with exhaustion. They'd earned this moment. Every adjustment, every course correction brought them closer to completion. As they approached Outpost 1, Jay could see it growing larger against the starfield. A gleaming metal spider sprawled across the void, its limbs outstretched in readiness. Lights blazed from every viewport, casting stark contrasts of brilliance and shadow. Fuel lines snaked from the station like arteries, pumping life into the corridor. Supply tenders docked at various points along its hull, ferrying goods and personnel to keep the installation humming. Jay guided the Vanguard's Pride with practiced ease, aligning the ship for docking. The station loomed before them, a testament to federal resilience and ingenuity. He could almost feel the pulse of activity within, technicians tending to systems, officers coordinating efforts, new recruits standing watch, eyes wide with both awe and trepidation. The docking clamps engaged with a series of metallic thuds, securing the patrol ship firmly against Outpost One's hull. Jay released his grip on the throttle, taking a deep breath as he surveyed the bridge one last time. The crew exchanged weary smiles, their faces reflecting both relief and pride. The Tantalus corridor was open. A calm, assured voice echoed through the bridge, Jay's inner narrator, a reflection of his own resolve. And it would stay open. As Jay stepped down from the con, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The corridor teemed with activity, ships moving in orderly lines, beacons guiding them safely home. This was their victory, hard-won and deserved. He stood at the threshold of the bridge, looking out over the bustling installation. Beyond the viewport, stars stretched out endlessly, but within, the corridor thrived. And with that knowledge, Jay Corbett knew they had secured more than just a route through space. They had forged a future where light could pierce even the darkest reaches of the void. The final shot lingered on Outpost 1, its lights blazing like a beacon of hope amidst the cosmos. The corridor was alive, pulsating with energy and purpose, a testament to human endeavor and unwavering spirit. The Tantalus corridor would stand as a monument to their triumph, a gateway to new frontiers waiting to be explored. And so, with a quiet nod to his crew, Jay Corbett stepped into the future, ready for whatever challenges lay beyond the edge of known space. End credits. End of audiobook Fireline at the Tantalus Edge. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.